All right. Welcome, everyone, to the More Than Just a Wedding podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Starr. And today we have a very, very special guest, Melissa Blase. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So glad you could be here. Melissa Blase is a
Mhm.
director of catering at one of the most beautiful venues here in the Scottsdale area. And she is very, very loved in our industry and
Aw.
incredibly knowledgeable about all things, particularly wedding venue related. So I'm so excited to be able to ask her some questions, knowing her background and knowing her expertise level, to be able to guide our listeners in helping them make great decisions when it comes to their venue. So we're just going to hop right in if that's okay. Because
Yes.
Melissa and I, we love to talk and we have so many stories, but we're going to try to keep this concise and beneficial to all of our listeners. So, Melissa, can you share your journey into the wedding industry and how you came to be the director of catering at McCormick Ranch Golf Club?
First of all, thank you for all the kind words that you said. Um, so my journey started way back when, I'd say probably about 20 years ago or so. I was in restaurant management and started working with doing events and being part of them, and then started like slowly learning events and how they all kind of come together, if you will. Um, and that was when I was living in Florida. And then when I moved back to Pennsylvania and I was managing another restaurant and we did private events and like then started going more into like outside catering with weddings and stuff. So I started becoming big part of that. And then I started a side hustle as if I wasn't busy enough and I started doing wedding planning on my own. But at that time, there really wasn't a large demand for it, especially in northeastern Pennsylvania, where it's like suburban area and things like that. And so, while I got a lot of experience from working with businesses and then doing everything on my own, I decided, I need to go to an area where I can flourish. So, I decided to come move out west. It was either going to Florida or Arizona. And I came out to Arizona because my sister lives here. Um, and I really just got involved with McCormick from the moment I walked in and gained a ton of experience and made my network and met wonderful people like yourself. And from there, it's just kind of gone up and up with all things weddings. And now that's like pretty much, besides all of our corporate events and things like that, but our primary focus here at McCormick, also besides golf, of course.
And Melissa, remind me, so the date that this podcast will air will be in probably January, February of 2026.
hmm
So how long have you been at McCormick Ranch?
My 10-year anniversary is at the end of January.
You're
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, be here a full
Wow.
decade, which is crazy because I haven't
And
aged a day.
not at all.
Kidding.
And that's really unique to your position, Melissa. And I tell a lot of couples this. Something that makes you unique at your property is that your role, well, let's just be real. It's not an easy role. And I can say that because I had a role at a golf and country club as the catering director myself many moons ago, but the level of I don't want to say pressure, but as a salesperson, there's big goals that are set out for the property itself. And I
Mhm.
think when you pair that with someone that loves people and loves weddings as much as you do, the weight of that responsibility, it's a lot. And I say that because a lot of people in these roles tend to move around a little bit. They'll move from property to property and so forth. And sometimes it's for a promotion, sometimes
Mhm.
it's due to burnout, sometimes it's just wanting a different, I don't know, a different like place to make a new home. I'm not sure, but it's very
Right.
rare that someone has the kind of longevity that you have at that property, and I think that's really special, and also just a compliment to McCormick Ranch Golf Club and the owners.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Um, it's of course, there's some seasons that are more challenging than others, and there's times where, of course, you rethink things and you're like, "Whoa," especially right after COVID, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure you can agree with that, which was a really challenging time for all of us trying to go back into the event world, so to speak. Um, but yeah, I really love it here. And it's like, is sometimes when people move on, it's like, okay, is the grass going to be greener? I
Sure.
don't know that, and it's not like
Mhm.
I want to move on. I'm happy here. I work for a really great company, a really great family. And and knowing my team, the team behind me is what's really important. My coworker Camelia has been with me and McCormick for 8 years, and
Wow.
my banquet manager has been here 17 years, and it just speaks
Is that
volumes of
one?
like that's Juan,
We
yeah. And
love him.
any of our industry friends, if they do watch this, you'll know Juan if you've worked here before. He's amazing. His wife has worked here for over 20 years. That's Letty, and she's been with the company for that long as well. So it really does speak volumes about who we work with in the company itself. So I'm very happy to be here.
Absolutely. Melissa, what do you love most about working with your couples and helping them bring their vision to life?
So it's interesting because you develop relationships with these couples, you working with them sometimes at the minimum 6 months to sometimes 18 months to 2 years. And a lot of times you develop that relationship as as being, they're working as a planning company as well. And it's amazing just to kind of get to know them and their families and see what they really love, and to actually on the wedding day see that vision come to life is just such an amazing feeling. I can't really put it into words. I don't know how, but a wedding day is like honestly one of the most important days of their entire life. And to watch that all come to fruition is just so awesome. I hope like I don't know.
It really is. It really is. And I think like having a role in that
Yeah.
joy, in that buildup,
Yeah.
in that it's unless you've lived it, it's hard to describe it.
It really
And
is.
I always tell our team, as long as that what you just described, like that natural high that you get from that day of being able to be that person for that family, as long as that always feels greater than the
Mhm.
level of stress you carry, then you know you're in the right place.
100%. And trust me, I mean, it's still stressful. Every wedding is stressful in itself in some form of element, and sometimes more element than one. But as soon as she walks down the aisle to go see her groom, it's like probably my most favorite part of the day because it's like, all right, we're here,
Yeah.
you know, and it's happened. And like, I feel like that up till that point is, of course, it's like pretty much our show after that, right? In a lot of different ways, but it's just it is a high. It really is.
Yeah.
And there's, I'm a crier. I get very emotional. I don't cry every single wedding, but there's some couples especially that I've gotten extremely close with where it's like I just tear up. You can't really help yourself. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh. Melissa, tell us about your venue. How would you describe McCormick Ranch Golf Club?
So, our club is very unique in itself. Our event space, I should say. So what was once an outdoor pavilion, which was an outdoor area before I came to work here, they enclosed it all in glass doors. So it's really beautiful, very different than, going into a banquet room or a different type of ballroom. We have floor to glass or floor to ceiling glass doors that open up, so it gives you this really nice indoor outdoor feel. We have amazing views of Camelback and a lake, which we're very lucky to have. There's not a lot of venues that have that. I mean, there are plenty of beautiful venues in this area. I'm not trying to discount any of them, but it's just very different. And you also have like a golf course feel. So you have a lot of greenery. You still have a deserty kind of vibe to it still, but, we have palm trees and just the absolute beauty of everything. Um, So it just has this really kind of warm and welcoming feel. Also, a lot of natural light, which is really important to people, with photos and just at nighttime to like be able to just look out the door, look outside, and just see all these like twinkling lights of the surrounding residents or businesses that are kind of close to us is just really pretty. And to kind of see the reflection on the lake and Camelback in the background too. It's just I don't know. From the moment I saw it here, which was way before I even worked here, it takes your breath away in a way. It really does.
You know, I always tell couples that I think it's the only property that has a view of the lake, the greens, the palm trees, and the mountain.
Mhm. I
And
think that's true.
there's been a lot of artists that have been commissioned to paint that scene, or they do like the water coloring of it, or they do the hand drawings, and then our couples use them in their invitations of there's that view, and you have to
Yes.
see it and feel it to know what I'm talking about, but it's really special, and I think as well, where you're positioned geographically is the heart of Scottsdale. There's so
Mhm.
many resources close by. And the other thing that's really special is that once the golf course closes for the day, the property is completely private to the wedding experience. And that's not always something that that's not something a lot of venues can offer. And that's really unique. And you touched on this point too, Melissa, that your property is actually privately owned,
Mhm.
which
Yes.
does bring a sense, I think, of I don't know, just like family. And there's not in in my opinion, being an outsider, I don't it doesn't feel like there's a lot of red tape involved because it is operating in like a more of like a family private space. Whereas with some of our larger properties, there's a lot of things that have to be considered when we go into the
Mhm.
planning and the detailing. So it's a
Yeah,
unique
100
space.
Yeah, 100%. I've worked for corporations before. It's very different. Like you said, there's not a lot of that red tape. You're not dealing with a lot of the corporate minutia, if you will, and dealing with certain boundaries where, I mean, of course, there's some boundaries, of course, but
Right.
there's a lot more flexibility, so to speak, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. Melissa, what's the most important things couples should consider when choosing their venue?
First and foremost, budget. Budget is a big deal. And you should always try to figure that out, in my opinion, before you start venue searching or when you start venue searching to see what ideally works for you best. And also your guest count, because you don't want to get your heart set on a venue that, you have 200 people and it can only accommodate 150. And you didn't realize that until you fell in love with it. And you're like, well, what do we do? Now we can't invite 50 of our favorite people to the wedding. So I feel like those two things are the biggest components to finding that great venue. Besides the fact of making sure that it's the right vibe, it's the right feel. And I think also too is like when you start meeting with your directors of catering or catering sales managers, things like that, do you mesh well with them too? You need to make sure you have that connection with somebody to make sure that yeah, this feels good. You could love the place, but you also have to feel good about the people that you're working with as well. And that's, I think, a huge component to when you're finding a venue.
Goodness, absolutely. I sure could speak to that. I think that, well, I'm just going to be maybe a little frank here, but if you don't feel welcomed in the sales process, and this is whether it's your venue or the vendors you're considering, if you don't get that warm fuzzy in the sales process, you're definitely not going to get that in the planning phase. So pay attention to how a venue or a vendor makes you feel because you should feel welcomed and you should feel special. That's
Yes.
the special thing that you're planning.
And that's advice that I give to our couples, like when they book with us, or even just like, when we do a site visit together and we talk about important vendors that you need to think about after you book your venue, and making sure you do have a connection with them, because especially like a photographer, they're with you 6 to 10 hours out of your day, and right there in your face. So it's very important to make sure that everyone's going to get along well that day, right? And that there's no weird feelings, if you will, you
Yeah.
know? So I'm right on the same page as you are with that.
Yes. And what would you say are common mistakes or misconceptions you see couples making during the planning?
Okay. So I think this is going to go revert back to budget again. You see couples that sometimes pick a venue that is not doesn't really work with their budget. They become what you call venue poor, if you will, because some of these venues have very high minimums. And so if you have, let's say, an $80,000 budget, which I'm just throwing a number out there, not everybody has that. Let's say even like a $50,000 budget. And let's say their food and beverage minimum is $30,000 or $50,000 for that night. Well, by the time taxes and gratuities and add-ons and things like that, you really have very little to play with at that point. Um, which means, then you make sacrifices on certain vendors you want to pick. There are certain vendors that you may want this amazing planner. You may want an amazing DJ or band that's just not going to work with your budget. And so then you're kind of scraping. So my biggest advice and what I see now is like stop trying to impress people with a name, okay? Or an area. Maybe Scottsdale doesn't work for a certain couple, and maybe, Chandler or something doesn't. That's amazing because there's so many beautiful venues all around, right? You need to see what works with your budget so you can have the wedding of your dreams and make it as spectacular as you want it to be. Another thing I see too, and give couples advice, is stop trying to make it better than your friend's wedding. Okay. Stop trying to up one. And I see that quite often. And it's like, listen, your day is going to be fantastic no matter what you do. It's all about the two of you. It's not about having this thing or that thing and this trend or that trend. It's more about what people celebrating you is going to be. So I kind of
Mhm.
went on two different rails there. I'm sorry, but
No, you're speaking my love language. Um, Kind of circling back to your first point too, you have to also know what you want to prioritize.
Mhm.
And y- it's hard if everything's a priority, especially when you're trying to put the puzzle pieces together budget wise. If you want this really expensive venue, but then you also want the really expensive, 12-piece band, and you want abundant floral, and you want, the full photography collection and a whole video. Like you have to have a substantial budget to support all of those things. So it's much more realistic to think, okay, we know entertainment's really important to us and the catering's really important to us.
Mhm.
Then you're going to prioritize that financially. And maybe you're okay with more modest floral. Maybe you're okay with candlelight.
Right.
Um, it's all about making decisions that matter most to you. So if everything feels like it has to be, the best of the best, that's a really hard mindset to have going into this.
Agree. Agree. And I will say, like, not to revert it back to McCormick, but we find a lot of couples that are looking at various different venues, some which may be way pricier than ours. And a lot of times they'll pick us because they can have those things that you just mentioned. They can have that 12-piece band. They can have the elaborate florals. They can, do something extra. They want to have
Melissa, what is the extra McCormick? You have a very unique consistency with the weddings that take place there. Do share.
fireworks. Fireworks. That is definitely a wow factor. That is something that we allow. A lot of venues in the area don't allow them. Um, And so that is a big thing here. And a lot of couples that we meet with, that is something that they must have. And so that gives you flexibility, you know, whereas at some places you can't have them, or if you don't have the budget to have them at the place where you're having your wedding, then you can't do it. So come here and have the fireworks.
And speaking of fireworks, Melissa and I have several fun stories from the past, but there's one in particular when it comes to fireworks that that speaks to me, and particularly the magical human that you are. Um, we had a couple that their parents wanted to surprise them with fireworks. Not only did they want it to be a surprise, they wanted the fireworks to go off at a very particular spot in a toast that they were reciting outside. And, I've done a lot of weddings and I've handled a lot of stressful situations, but the timing of those fireworks really had me in my head. And so thankfully, Melissa agreed to say, I got this, Jen. I got this. And not only was the timing of the blast of the fireworks that it could not have been better, and then the song that was played immediately, I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah, me too. I remember that. I was very nervous. No, I don't get of course there's always like nerves on every wedding day, but that particular wedding was extremely nerve-wracking just to get it at that certain time where they actually said in their speech at the very end, "And fireworks," like they were wishing them well, and it said, "May your, love be blah, 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 and have fireworks," and then they had to go off, and it actually went off as they said it. It was amazing. Still get chills over that, but
Me
yes,
too. And the
I'll forever
sweetest
remember that.
couple,
Yes.
sweetest family, like, we just wanted to do right by anything and
Mhm.
that's, like, the one big ask that they had, and it
Yeah,
was so special.
it was, yeah.
Oh, goodness. Okay, we touched on this a little bit, but perhaps there may be something else you wanna add. Melissa, how can couples make sure their venue aligns with both their vision and their budget?
Oh, it's a tough okay. So how can they align both their vision and their budget? Again, prioritizing what's important to them, right? Um, sometimes, I always call Pinterest like a curse and a blessing, right? Because you see these elaborate florals on Pinterest, and you want to work with a florist that can kind of execute that, but kind of get you do it on a smaller budget, right? Scale. So prioritizing what's important to you. Are the fireworks important? Are the florals important? Is a certain photographer important? Maybe making sure that aligns with your budget and what your venue can provide. Because again, going back to having these really expensive food and beverage minimums, that may not work. So it's also prioritizing and making that vision come to life. Where is it going to work best for you? Does that
Yeah, I
make
think
sense?
also another great advantage to your property is that it's a pretty neutral palette,
Yes.
and all types of looks can happen within that pavilion. Whereas some properties, the decor is very established and very set. And, you can't really have a modern wedding at a property that's very romantic and like abundant in greenery everywhere. I feel like McCormick can offer a very uh, is neutral the right word? Just a really
Yes.
nice foundation that can absorb any kind of design style.
Hmm.
So I think that's really important too.
Agreed. And I'm going to throw this in there. We just underwent a renovation this past summer of 2025 and really made it even more neutral than it already was. Something that's great is because you can have any color wedding scheme in there, right? Because it's all earth tones, if you will, all browns and lighter colors and things like that. And you have a concrete flooring, so you're not competing with a busy carpeting where as you go to some venues, if it's like black and white carpeting or something busy, it's kind of like, well, how do I work with this? Right. This, our our reception space, the pavilion gives you a variety of different color schemes, different types of weddings, because we've seen everything in there. And pretty much everything works. I haven't
Mhm.
really seen much that doesn't work, whether you're having color, you're doing all white, or you're doing um, black and white or brown and white. Everything is going to work in that space.
Yeah.
So it does give you flexibility to do that. Also, it's it's even like the structure of the building isn't too rustic. It's not too modern. It's not a warehouse. It's not a barn. It's not, it has a very simple feel to it that you can do a lot in it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Melissa, any advice when it comes to catering, menu choices, and the overall guest culinary experience?
So when we do with our couples, when we do their entree tasting, um, I always try to tell them, make it about the two of you and what the two of you like, right? What's going to reflect the two of you? Do you love short ribs or do you love pasta or something that you want to incorporate into your wedding? It should reflect what the two of you like. I always advise clients to like, it's hard to please every single guest. You have to make it so it's appealing to everybody. Um, and maybe incorporate some fun things during the cocktail hour that like you guys really like and then keep it more of a simple dinner or things of that nature or like bring this really cool dessert in like I'm going to give a shout out to cannolis by Mike, right, which is such a cool experience and an interactive dessert and something cool that the guests will love. And if you guys love cannolis, bring that in if that works with your budget. um you want it to reflect the two of you and not get so bombarded by a lot of input from family because sometimes that's very distracting.
Mhm.
There's always a lot of opinions that float around. And well, we value those, of course. We want to make sure that it doesn't create any issues with deciding your catering and your meal. We get a lot of couples too that are like, "Well, we want to divvy off of this your menu. Can we do that?" Sure. Do we want to do stations? Do we want to do Italian, Mexican, something different? I've had weddings where they're like, "We want to do sliders and like mac and cheese and
Mhm.
comfort food because that's what we love." Then let's do it. We're open to it. And to kind of make it a little bit just fun.
I'm a big fan of your short ribs.
Yeah. A lot of
Those are
people are.
fantastic.
They
Yeah.
are really good.
The nice part of the planning experience is that oftentimes we do get to participate in the tasting, and, um, it's really quite fun to be able to also tell our clients about how amazing the food is, how
Yeah.
amazing the appetizers are, how great, the service is, and yeah. Speaking of wedding planners, I'd like for you to be as open and honest as you desire. Melissa, what is the difference that a wedding planner can make during the planning process and also on the wedding day itself?
Having a planner is essential to any wedding. I'm gonna go on a little personal note here. My nephew just got married a month ago. Actually, Starr, Alicia was their planner. She did a phenomenal job. I can't even express how thrilled we were. Um, Not only being in the industry, and my sister is also a director of catering at a private golf club. We knew we had to have somebody. You want somebody. You want somebody there who's going to hold your hand and kind of guide you and tell you what to do because let's be real, a lot of times most couples have never planned a wedding before or been part of planning or don't have any experience planning a party, so to speak. So you need somebody to really walk you through all of those steps. A wedding planner is one of the best investments a couple can make. Um, and on our side, from the venue, it is imperative. Just because of how busy we are, number one. Number two, making sure the couple understands like timeline, the importance of a timeline, especially throughout the day, and things that they need to be thinking of prior to wedding and like 6 months in advance, like what you should be doing at this point or that point or whatever. Or even if we have couples that have planners that get involved 60 to 90 days in advance, really kind of taking over and saying, okay, you did such amazing work up until this point. Let me help you. Let me talk to your vendors. And then execution on wedding day is vital, right? Most important day. We need to make sure we're all on our game. And to make sure you have a strong support system there that is going to make sure you're taken care of the day of the wedding as a couple, and your family's taken care of, and the venue and the vendors are know like everything that's going on at specific times is the utmost important thing that day. um, and the communication is a vital part of that day as well too. So um, as a venue, it's I mean, we require it at this point. It's not something that is an option to not have a planner, just because not only on our part, it's vital to the client too. To make sure somebody is there to get somebody something, or to, if every no wedding day is ever singularly perfect, right? There's always something that goes on behind the scenes that we don't want anyone to know about, that we're the magicians behind those curtains making things happen, right? That's what I always say. So having somebody who's managing your entire day is extremely important.
Thank you for saying that, and I know how, passionate you feel about that. But one other point I'd love to make too is that oftentimes people, especially organized people that take on projects a lot, they they don't feel that they need a planner because in their mind they're capable. They've done similar things before. Um, they have jobs with lots of pieces they have to put together, busy, busy. But something that I think we know is that planners need planners the most.
Hmm.
And you being who you are and how knowledgeable you are and all this expertise, you could plan a wedding in your sleep as
Hmm.
well as your sister. But because, and I'm so, what a gift you guys were able to give to yourself is on that day, I'll get emotional. I'll get emotional. On that day, you knew that you needed to be Aunt Melissa, and
Hmm.
you knew that your sister deserved to be the mother of the groom. And those roles are far more powerful than being the wedding planner. Am I getting you emotional?
Yes.
Being the wedding planner.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that because even if, yes, you can do something, it doesn't mean you should do that.
Right. I mean, honestly, we were able to enjoy the day at maximum capacity. We never wanted for anything. We never needed anything. And I think I don't know if I told you this or Alicia this, but like anytime we anticipated a need, she was there without
Mm,
even knowing that we needed her. The entire team was, even throughout the entire day. And Melissa, who was such a huge help, and Cami and everyone else that was there that day. It was like we got to enjoy that day 100%, 100,000%, I should say. I don't even know beyond. We walked away from that day and didn't even have one thing to say like, "Oh, well, this didn't go right," or I mean, we had no idea of any. I mean, it was perfect. Everything
mm.
was perfect. And as being in this industry and watching every little detail throughout, like, the planning process with them, and even here at McCormick, we had their welcome dinner. And, of course, you're on your game that day where you're like, "Oh gosh," watching the staff and watching this. And we really wanted to just be able to relax those 2 days at both of our venues, and we were given that opportunity, which was so nice. So the biggest advice I can give to couples that think like, "Oh, I got this." Okay, well, maybe you have it to a certain point, but you really need to enjoy your wedding day. And you want your family to enjoy your wedding day too. So they're not worrying about setting things up and doing things and collecting things at the end of the night. You want to be able just to be like, I came here as a guest and I'm leaving as a guest. And I enjoyed every single second of this day. That is the best advice I can give to somebody is
Mm,
allow yourself to have.
100%. And you've inspired me too, Melissa. In my early days, sure, I helped friends and families plan. I would not do that now. I would give them
Mhm.
all my resources, and but I would hire a planner for them as my gift to them that is not me.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
and that's a powerful thing that I think, any sister or mother or loved one or best friend should keep in mind that
Yeah.
they should be that role and not the planner on their loved one's
Yes.
special day. So,
100%. It's worth the investment.
that's right. Okay. Whew. Both of us getting passionate over this.
I know.
Okay. Melissa, you are so good at this. Can you share with us how you in particular help your couples feel calm and confident when they're planning their big day?
So I try as much as they'll let me in and to develop like a personal connection with them and to kind of understand what their vision is and, whether it's family dynamics or things that they might be stressed out about the day of the wedding, to kind of let us in and let us know certain things so we can help them make their day super special. Um, and helping them, you know, make their vision come to life, so to speak, here at the venue. Everybody has a certain part of that throughout the day. Planners, photographers, florists, cake artists, things like that, right? But the more I develop a personal relationship with them, the more I get to know about them and to make sure like I know every detail about their day. And again, that's where the planners come in essentially with us too. So we know more than we don't know, right? Um, and I find that when I work with somebody, let's say a year, because that's usually the normal time that we start working with people, um, getting to know them and their families and executing their day and making sure that it feels the least amount of stress they can feel that day, the better. I want them to walk into this venue and be like, yeah, we got it. Everybody else has it. Let me soak in every single second. And that is our goal as a venue, just to not let anybody stress out about anything, including parents, you know, and wedding day, you see the couples, and of course, you see some stress, but it's more so the parents than anything. And getting to know the parents as much as we can. Sometimes it's that's not available because they live out of state or whatever, is to try to reassure them and to let them enjoy every single moment of the day too. So that's where we try to make a big difference in executing their day and up and planning the day up until their big day.
And you guys do a phenomenal job at that. How would you describe McCormick Ranch Golf Club experience in just a few words?
Hmm. That's tough. I have more than a few words, as you know. It's just it's exceptional, it's beautiful, it's different. It's family, we try to make it a very family-oriented, company, which I think we already talked about, obviously, but, we just McCormick is just a very different and special venue, you know? You're gonna have a different feeling with working with somebody like myself or Camelia or whoever it may be, and getting that one-on-one time and, answering emails and trying to not make it feel like it is, I hate to say this term, a wedding factory, if you will,
The
where you're kind of just another number. No, I want to get to know you. We want to get to know your families and things like that as much as we can. And, I guess like the best word I could say is it's just like very family oriented, a beautiful property, um, and just a different feel, if that makes sense.
And if our listeners and or viewers, because now we can do either, if they would like to learn more about McCormick Ranch Golf Club, Melissa, what is the best way for them to connect with you and how can they find more information?
So for sure, our website, McCormickRanchGolfClub.com, or my email, which is catering at McCormickRanchGolf.com. Or you can find me on Instagram. We have two different Instagrams. We have one for McCormick Ranch Golf Club itself, and then I have one that I kind of do a little side piece on, if you will, which is Melissa MRGC. I tend to post a lot more stories on there on wedding weekends and for like our couples, like future couples, current couples, past couples to see. It's very helpful with vendors that we work with. I tag them as well so they can see, okay, who was the planner on this wedding or who was the DJ on this wedding or who was the florist or whatever. So they could get a good idea. And that, if they shoot me in a direct message through Instagram, that's fine too. But they can find my contact information on McCormick's website if they just, look for contacts and they have my phone number on there as well. So that's the best place to find me. We also have like information through Wedding Wire, the Knot. We do have accounts on there and then Pinterest as well. But that's just to look at our boards.
Perfect. And Melissa, one closing question. The name of this podcast is More Than Just a Wedding. So I love to ask my guests, what do those words mean to you? More than just a wedding.
So in my brain, a wedding day is an exceptional day to celebrate, your love and have everybody celebrate the two of you. But it is more than a wedding. It is the start of your marriage. It is a start of a lifelong commitment together. It is the joining of your two families, um, and extended families or whatnot. And it's more than a wedding because your your wedding day goes far beyond one day. I always say, and I told my nephews, I want you to feel that same feeling you feel today for every single day after it, that excitement, that love that the two of you feel. We want you to feel that. So it's more than just one day. It's the rest of your lives.
Well said. Well said. Well, my dear friend, thank you so much for being on this podcast episode with me today. I love continuing growing in this industry together and all of the fun stories that we have to share, and I appreciate the trust you have in our team, and thank you for the knowledge that you shared with all of us today.
Well, thank you for having me. What an honor to be asked. Not gonna lie, was a little nervous. That kind of went away a little bit, but I appreciate you asking me and feel honored for it too. And I
Well,
love our relationship too. It's been amazing and can't wait for more weddings together. Lots
that's
and
right.
lots. Yeah.
That's right. I knew you'd be a natural.
I don't know about that.
You did great. But thank you everyone for listening today to the More Than Just a Wedding podcast. We hope you found this information helpful, and we'll chat again next time.
Yes. Thank you.